Welcome back to Miropolo's Sweep Out, the Broom Boom Countdown, a spoofing. This is episode 7. Who the f is Wilhelm Gliese? What happened until now? My name is Alf, and my professional status until August 2094 was as follows. I worked in an open plan office at the World's Institute for Astronautic Space Research and Space Policy and equipped spaceship with fully automatic cleaning machines. Fully automatic cleaning machines, these are many individual components that are controlled by a computer and ultimately carry out all cleaning, washing and dishwashing tasks. My task included ordering components, coordinating installation and handover. It was a typical office job. That has changed in the meantime. Well, I think you can call it dramatic. Now, it's September 2094 and I have a new job with my old employer as cleaner.
Sweep out!
How did that happen? Well, I try to make it short. My employer wants to save money on future space expeditions and is doing this on the fully automatic cleaning machines in the spaceships. The plan was for astronauts to clean their spacecrafts themselves with brooms, mops and vacuum cleaners. All devices whose use had been discontinued about 100 years ago in favor of more modern alternatives. There had been protests and threats of strikes from the astronauts. Although this damaged the public image of the astronauts, it led to no considerations by the Space Institute. And after a few coincidences and accidents, I found myself at the center of these considerations. Namely, I became a cleaner on the next space expedition.
Sweep out!
The appointment, naturally, caused a stir around the world. One of the office simply became an astronaut and with a very unusual research assignment at that. My job is to prove that the use of brooms and mops during space expeditions in spaceships is possible and effective. This generated media interest that I could not have imagined before. I think that's also the reason why I now have a driver, my own office in a specially secured building complex and 2 consultants, Mick and Jim. The next expedition is called 11/31. I had already worked on equipping this spaceship and had to cancel the orders later. But I don't know anything about the mission of this flight jet. That should change in the next few days. I have a rigorous learning and training program overseen by Mick and Jim. And now I'm excited to see what's in store for me.
Sweep out!
Episode 7. Who is this Wilhelm Gliese? There have always been differences of opinion between the astronauts and the many employees of the Institute on Earth. The equipment department in particular has traditionally been criticized by the astronauts. I already something about this in the first episode. The equipment department was responsible for ensuring that space expeditions were equipped with everything the astronauts needed during the expeditions. This ranged from bed linen to my area of expertise, fully automatic cleaning, to catering, from cosmetics to entertainment electronics, from clothing to kitchen utensils, from building materials for possible station construction on other planets to vehicles and aircrafts for getting around on some, from airplugs to medication, medical technology and sports equipment, depending on what was planned and necessary for the respective expedition. Of course, this created a lot of friction between equipment suppliers and astronauts, because practically everything that could displease the astronauts during space flights ultimately had its origins in the equipment department. Classic points of attack were food and clothing. There was always criticism here, either about too few or too many vegetarian or vegan dishes. The design of casual clothing was always criticized after every expedition. And shoes, oh yes, shoes. Sorry if I don't go into this topic any further, because that would certainly stretch your patience and my time limit.
Sweep out!
I really never wanted to be in the shoes of the outfitters responsible here. The fully automatic cleaning was more of a side issue, but was still criticized from time to time. You probably remember the story about a cleaning computer that caused the crew of a waste carrier to escape. If not, then read it again. It's in episode 1.
Sweep out!
Nevertheless, I myself was less often at the center of the discrepancy between astronauts and equipment suppliers. Of course, that changed completely when we wanted to equip astronauts with brooms and mops. But now, things got really serious. For the astronauts, I had become something of a strikebreaker. Someone who allowed himself to be abused by the institute management to enforce measures that were directed against the interests of the astronauts. In the eyes of the astronauts and their unions and associations, the abandonment of fully automatic cleaning machines and the introduction of brooms and scrubbers in spaceships violated all applicable collective agreements and all contracts that regulated working and living conditions during space expeditions. The fact that someone was willing to take over the cleaning of the spacecraft with these instruments during a flight and also collect arguments for their subsequent final introduction was very poorly received by astronauts. But that was exactly my mission. I was supposed to prove that it was possible to require astronauts to clean their ships in the future. Well, it was clear to me that I was in an awkward situation, and I also knew that I would get significantly worse once I was trapped in a spaceship alone with around 30 astronauts.
Sleep out.
I was very unsure whether I was on the right side of this argument, unsure about using the new cleaning instruments. To put it mildly, there was some damage during the first tests at the institute and at my home, but the public seemed to be completely convinced that I was doing the right thing. The media had positioned itself against the astronauts, and especially on social media the image had become established of spoiled, rich astronauts who believed they were too educated for cleaning work, and I, the fighter against pride and for justice.
Sleep out.
I was seen in this role almost every day in all media. Of course, this also contributed to the fact that, despite my doubts, it was not possible for me to back out. There were also Mick and Jim. The two of them were tasked with using every means possible to ensure that I would be fit and trained in the spaceship waiting for the launch in 8 weeks. And they did that quite purposefully. They strictly monitor the implementation of their 50-point plan.
Sleep out.
Today, right at the beginning of the 8-week countdown to the launch, there was self-study on the PC in my new office and later an specified photo shoot. While I was studying, Mick and Jim sat at their desk, busy or pretending to be busy, making sure I didn't move from my spot, and I hit the enter key at least once every 3 minutes to get to the next page.
Sleep out.
Our only conversation was that once of an hour, one of the two asked, "Are you okay? Do you have any questions?" But I had no questions. I studied.
Sleep out.
Today's learning unit was called Basic Knowledge about the Space Expedition 11/31. I already knew some of this. After all, I was an employee at the World Space Institute. On the other hand, large expeditions started every 2 months, smaller ones even more often. I knew exactly which fully automatic cleaning machines they had been equipped with, but I mostly only used their scientific tasks superficially. At least I knew that 11/31 was a landing mission. That is, it was intended to land on a planet. I now found out more about this in my self-study, and I'll just pass some of it on to you. The flight goes to the planet Gliese 581c in the constellation Libra. Gliese? Strange name for a planet. I found it too, but quickly discovered that there were many other planets and stars that had the same name. Gliese 581c orbits the red dwarf Gliese 581. Stars of the smallest star category of hydrogen fusion are called red dwarfs, about half the size of our Sun. What do we want there? Well, Gliese 581c is located in a potentially habitable zone of a solar system neighboring ours. There are probably Earth-like temperatures and probably water. These are 2 points that our flight aims to prove. It is also important to find out to what extent the term habitable can be maintained. Another manned mission to this planet is already on its way there. The 11/30 left a good quarter of a year ago. will install a station on Gliese 581c and will be relieved there by the crew of our flight. The flight time is just over half a year, so the 11/30 is already halfway there. If we reach the planet, it will start a journey back and take me back to Earth. The crew of 11/31 remains on the planet, explores it, continues to expand the station, and will be replaced after 6 months by another expedition, 11/32.
Sleep out.
Okay, and how exactly is the cleaning of the spaceships, you may ask? Well, Flight 11/30 is still equipped with fully automatic cleaning, as usual. If my order goes well, and it can be determined that the future cleaning can be done by astronauts with brooms and scrubbers, the crew of 11/31 will do these on their return flight, following my example, and later also the crew of 11/32. If this is not the case, the 11/32 will have the fully automatic machines on board for the return flight of the 11/31. So much for the cleaning plan.
Sleep out.
Now a little more astronomy, but I'll keep it short. Why are the stars and planets called Gliese, and what do the numbers mean? Wilhelm Gliese was a German astronomer who began compiling a catalogue of known stars from neighboring solar systems in the 60s, which has since been continuously updated and supplemented with newly discovered stars. The catalogue of nearby stars was first published in 1969, and all the stars in it are called Gliese and have a number. The planets that orbit them receive a letter. So Gliese 581 is a star in the constellation Libra, which is orbited by several planets, one of which is 581c. For Gliese 581c, calculations shortly after its discovery in 2007 showed that temperatures would be similar to those on Earth and water could be present in relevant quantities and in liquid form. This was later called into question again and again through further calculations and was actually supposed to be clarified by an unmanned spaceflight in 2085. However, contact with the space capsule was lost shortly after landing on the planet for unknown reasons and could not be restored. Finding the causes for this is also part of the mission of current missions 11/30 and 11/31. Gliese 581c is about 5 times the size of Earth, and early calculations had already determined that the star 581 should be visible from 581c, about 5 times the size of the Sun and Earth sky. There were film recordings on the first unmanned mission that were taken shortly before landing and before lost connection. These were the recordings that my boss Potter had shown me to illustrate the further course of my professional career. A few more facts. Gliese 581c orbits its star once in about 30 days, being bound to 581 during its orbit. This means that one side of the planet is always facing the star. So it is always day there, and one side is always facing away, so it's always night there. Therefore, a level on the border between the day and night sides is provided for landing. It is assumed that, among other things, favored by atmospheric currents, pleasant temperatures and tolerable lightning conditions prevail in this area. So that's the short summit of what took me at least 3 hours of self-study.
Sleep out.
Mick's Celitail vibrated, and that meant the next appointment was coming up. A photo shoot. My 50-point plan didn't contain any further details, but no matter what happened, I was happy for any change and any opportunity to get away from my desk and my computer. Meg and Jim accompanied me to a photo studio on the Institute grounds. Like my new office, it was in a secure area, which I found unusual for a photo studio. But there were other unusual things. I had to put on a spacesuit, position myself in front of several flags, and was not allowed to laugh during the photo. Mick and Jim were initially unusually reserved when I asked what would be done with these photos. After I persisted, Jim revealed that they were obituary photos.
Sleep out.
These are photos, he explained, that will be made available to the media for an obituary. Should you die?
Sleep out.
Oh, now I have a little lump in my throat. Sorry. That's why we're calling it a day. Mick and Jim had to send an updated status report to the Institute board every evening. Today, this was the current status report. Out of 50 talks, 8 completed. In time. No special features, mood okay, 45 days left until launch. So much for today. The next episode is worth reading because I tell you how the inside of my left cheek came to touch my right molars. Or worse, other way around. We'll sort this out in the next episode. Until then, bye!